If you get on the internet, there is a slew of proclaimed experts that say that they know how people work, how behavior works. They're relationship experts, self help experts. They're all entirely wrong. They're all wrong all the time. They're all full of it. They have no idea what they're talking about. And actually, it's not that hard to learn how people work. And people have already done the work. So largely, you can break people up into 9 categories. Now, what these 9 categories kind of do are these are traits about people, typically on how they do things, that remain stable through their lifetime, right? So, from a young age, like as young as 5, these traits will start to fix. And think of them like dials that don't change, like knobs that turn up the volume. Um, Largely, they're going to be the same. They may go up or down a little bit throughout your lifetime, or up or down situationally, right? But largely, they're going to stay inside a certain range. So, we'll start with the first 5 traits. There's 9 altogether, but the first 5 are the most comprehensive and the most useful. You have agreeableness, openness, extroversion, conscientiousness, and neuroticism. Now, these are personality profiles that are most exhaustively studied out of all personality science, right? These are the ones that are also the most useful, where they're very good at creating predictive models of people. You can use these, kind of model these onto someone, and then you can actually generally kind of know what they will and won't do and how they'll kind of react to stuff. So, we'll just start from the top. Agreeableness. Agreeableness is the tendency to alleviate conflict or prefer a lack of conflict. Right? There's some other qualities that go along with it, but that's largely what that means. So each personality trait is on a 0 to 100 scale. 100 is the most agreeable person. 0 is the least agreeable person. Right? So most people sit between probably 40 and 60. Most people sit around 50% of that scale, right? So most people are average agreeableness, which is 50. And then you have, if you're way down on the scale, you have agreeableness of 5. That means 5% of people are that agreeable or lack of agreeable or disagreeable, right? Once you get to that side of the scale, you're now considered disagreeable, where you doing something just to not cause friction in a relationship is not your number one priority and not something you're going to do. And so you have this sliding scale, right? 100% agreeable means that it's more likely you're kind of a pushover and you worry about the dynamics of people getting along disproportionately way more than you're probably supposed to. Right, and this is a fixed trait. This is a trait most people probably gonna have to live with their whole life, and they may come with tactics to where it doesn't interfere with their life, but this is probably what they'll deal with. The next trait is openness, and this is a very underrated trait that a lot of people don't consider, and I never hear anyone talk about. But openness is the tendency to accept and explore new ideas. It's the explorer trait. So it's not the acceptance of new ideas, it's actually the drive to go find new and novel experiences also. So this person may have, someone that's the most most open has 100, probably has 10 hobbies that have nothing to do with each other. The person that's least open has he's like a Star Wars nerd or something. Basically, the only thing he cares about is Star Wars. He may look up, the how the planes work in Star Wars lore. He's generally kind of more science fiction-y. Maybe he's never watched or read any other fantasy. Right? Those are just kind of examples of what that would look like. I think people that have low openness tend to also fall into liking routines a little bit more, or liking rituals a little bit more. It's not a strict adherence to that trait, but it's something that does couple with it. But high openness again is novelty. So there's a almost 100% chance that someone that has the most openness is gonna have a different routine probably every month, because they're gonna find something new that they like and incorporate into their routine, right? Or start a new hobby or join a new club or whatever. Change jobs every 5 years. That's most likely with people high openness. But again, most people are average. Most people will sit between probably like 40 and 60, 50 being the middle of the most average in openness. Now, this is an aspect that almost everybody knows. This is extroversion, right? It's what it sounds like. How much you enjoy and seek out group experiences, right? The other side of that is introversion. The amount you're going to seek out and enjoy group experiences is almost zero, right? The interesting thing that they have found correlative with extroversion is more positive emotion, which I think is interesting. And just thinking back from experience seems to be true, right? For whatever reason, people high in extroversion tend to just have more positive emotion, also a little bit more assertive. And I'm not sure entirely what that is, and maybe just the excitement or the need to feel to just interject their thoughts in situations for whatever reason. That one's pretty simple. So far, we've gone over agreeableness, openness, extroversion, and again, these traits are stable. So if you can somebody has a very obvious trait, like they're very, very extroverted, well, you can expect certain things from that person. So now the next trait is conscientiousness, which I think is one of the most important traits. And I don't just think that, some of the science and the research they've done also suggests that this is the most important trait, or second most important trait in jobs. And I think this is the most important trait in interpersonal dynamics, is actually conscientiousness. Now, one of the technical definitions of conscientiousness is the tendency to be organized, reliable, self-directed, and schedule-oriented. Now, one way that has been described of conscientiousness is like type A personality. Just think of that. People that just they like the routine, they like a schedule, they like a plan, that kind of a thing. These people are conscientious. Someone that's not conscientious at all, someone that is not conscientious has never made a plan in their entire life. They have a hard time keeping up with time. They just don't track things. Like this person, if they're trying to lose weight, they may pick like one thing. Oh, I'll just cut out chips. I'll just cut out soda. And that's like their whole plan. Where someone that's very conscientious is going to track every micro, macro, and calorie. Right? So that's kind of the difference between the two. And you would say, hey, one sounds way better than the other. These do not sound like just two things that are different. One sounds way better than the other. You'd be right. Conscientiousness is the second highest predictor in career success. If you have a zero conscientiousness, what you get is not most people. Most people get around a 50 plus or minus 10 points. It actually goes up at the job specifically. But if you have zero conscientiousness, boy, work is going to be hard for you unless it's your favorite thing to do. That's just reality. That's just for real. For real. And it's going to be hard for you to kind of like plan to do things that you just don't care about. It's going to be really hard to make checklists and get those done. So one disagreement I have about the characterization of conscientiousness is I would describe it as a satisfaction of task completion, which is different than being organized. You have to be organized to complete tasks in the first place. But there's a very different characterization of it, because I would say that the satisfaction does not have to be towards anything productive, which is a very important distinction. If you don't have to be productive to finish these tasks, then you could be just doing nonsense all day, right? So women are actually slightly higher in conscientiousness, but women also have twice the amount of diagnosis in OCD, actually. Well, double is a big number. And what is OCD? OCD is the doing the physical action, completing the task, but not getting the feeling and satisfaction of the task completion itself, right? And I don't think that there's a coincidence that those two things are related. So again, this is a sliding scale. So this is a 0 to 100 scale in all of these things. So you could be, your agreeableness, your openness, your extroversion. Those are going to be sliding scales on somewhere you're going to land between, 0 and 100. Most people are going to land between 40 and 60. Now, if you have some sort of extraordinary trait that's in the high 80s or maybe very low, you're going to probably be in a position in life, or maybe a job or maybe a hobby, that's pretty unlikely. You're going to be doing something most people just don't do. They never think to do it. That's not preferable to them. They don't like doing it. So people that are maybe there's a guy that's a very good natural manager, and so for some reason he can just handle 50 people and he can just do it, right? I mean, 9 times out of 10, this person is going to be slightly high in extroversion. This person is going to be slightly high in conscientiousness. This person is going to be slightly low in neuroticism, and the openness and what was the other one? And maybe probably average in agreeableness. Maybe actually even low in agreeableness, depending on the industry he's working in. But the openness is essentially doesn't affect that trait at all. This, charismatic, likable, very competent manager type person. This is a person that he just has the perfect lineup of traits that get him into this position, right? And the extroversion is, gives him longevity in his position because he likes the interaction with all his employees and that kind of a thing. If he was like a super introvert, the day-to-day interactions with his employees would be kind of grating, where he could do it, but he would need sort of a recovery when he got home, right? And this is good to know, because if you're an extroversion type person, don't pick the remote job at home, even if it pays a lot of money, you're good at it. Even if it's a math job. If you're an extrovert, you might want to consider a sales position. And these are things that you have to really consider just throughout your life. These are things people never teach you, never learn, but these are things to consider, because these traits about you, for the most part, aren't going to change, that you really should actually consider. Now, last but not least, the trait we have is neuroticism. And neuroticism is essentially, there's a better definition of this, but it's essentially how strong you feel an emotion. Or, that's a good way of saying that, is how strongly you feel emotions. So if you have a 0, you're going to be pretty flat most of the time. There's going to be a couple of things that are your favorite things that get you very excited. Someone that's 100 is going to have a lot of emotional energy. Here's the issue. Neuroticism, when it's at the higher scales, and the higher the neuroticism is, the higher the likelihood for negative emotion specifically, right? To get upset, to get angry, get disappointed, whatever. So to get the high, so like the person that gets the most excited by anything in the world, by default, 99% of the time, that person is going to have mostly they're going to have a lot of negative emotions too, and they're going to have big swings towards the negative. And actually, if the percentage of their time when they do get emotional about stuff will be negative emotions, which is interesting. I would think the pendulum swinging, emotion would be emotion. That's not the case, actually. It's actually just not true. And I think it's probably due to the fact that it's easy to be unhappy. Right? So it's a narrow bandwidth of life where you're going to be happy. Very narrow. Has to be right temperature. Can't be thirsty. Can't be hungry. Can't be this. Can't be that. Can't be with the wrong people. Very hard to actually be happy. So it makes sense that if you have very, very intense emotions, those swing towards negative emotions are going to happen more often.